These are three true stories that happened during school lockdowns. I still remember the exact moment the room went silent. It wasn't panic at first, just that uneasy feeling that something wasn't right. I'll keep the school name out of this, but I was a sophomore at the time. It was late October, around third period, and I was sitting in my chemistry class. I was 17 years old. The windows were fogged up from the cold outside, and our teacher had just started a lab demonstration. Everything felt normal. People were whispering, passing notes, waiting for the bell. Then the intercom crackled. The vice principal's voice came through, shaky and rushed, telling all teachers to initiate lockdown procedures immediately. He repeated himself twice. That's when my teacher's face changed. He shut off the lights without saying a word and locked the door. That was the switch. At first, we just sat there. No one spoke. We could hear lockers slamming faintly in the hallway, but that wasn't unusual between classes. A few minutes passed, and then the power cut out completely. The room went pitch black. Escalation came slowly. Someone outside started running. You could hear shoes hitting the tile, getting closer, then stopping right outside our classroom door. The handle rattled once, then again, harder. A girl near me started crying quietly. The teacher motioned for us to get down behind the lab tables. I could hear my own breathing loud in my ears. The footsteps moved on, but then we heard yelling farther down the hall. It sounded angry, panicked, not like a student. Then came the banging. It wasn't on our door this time. It was lockers being hit, one after another, like someone was walking down the hall, smashing into them. The sound echoed through the building. The peak moment came when the banging stopped right outside our room again. Whoever it was tried the handle harder this time. The door flexed slightly. Someone whispered, "Oh my God," behind me. Then it stopped. About 15 minutes later, the intercom came back on. The lockdown was lifted. We were told to stay seated and wait for instructions. Eventually, administrators escorted us out class by class. Later, we found out a man had entered the school through an unlocked side door and assaulted the front desk staff before disappearing into the building. They never confirmed whether he was armed. The aftermath was immediate. New security doors were installed. We had drills every month. Teachers kept their doors locked at all times. But the unsettling part came weeks later when a janitor told my friend they'd found someone sleeping in a supply closet that night, long after the lockdown ended. No one ever explained who that was. I was 20 years old and working as a temporary IT intern at my old high school. I had graduated years earlier, but I knew the building well, especially the basement. My office was down there, near the servers. It was quiet, windowless, and usually empty. That afternoon, I was alone, eating lunch at my desk. It was just after 1 p.m. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a message from the front office. Lockdown. Turn off lights. Stay where you are. That was the switch. I reached up and shut off the overhead lights and my computer screen. The basement door didn't lock properly, which I had complained about before. I sat there in the dark, trying to stay calm. At first, nothing happened. Then I heard the basement door open. Footsteps came down the stairs slowly, not rushed, measured. I assumed it was a teacher or another staff member until the footsteps stopped right outside my office area. I slid off my chair and crouched behind a filing cabinet. My phone buzzed again, a text from my supervisor upstairs. "Guy with a gun, red jacket, stay hidden." That's when the footsteps moved again, closer. I could see a shadow pass through the doorway opening. Whoever it was didn't turn the lights on. I held my breath as someone entered the room. They stood there for several seconds. I could hear breathing,
heavy, nervous. Then a voice whispered, "Is anyone down here?" I didn't answer. The person moved again, closer to the desk, then stopped abruptly. I heard footsteps retreat toward the stairs. Moments later, shouting echoed from upstairs, followed by what sounded like a loud bang. That was the peak moment, not knowing if it was a door slamming or something worse. Eventually, police cleared the building. I was escorted out through the basement exit with my hands visible. The resolution was quick. A former student had entered the school looking for a specific teacher. He was arrested in the parking lot. After that, the basement office was closed permanently. Access was restricted. The broken lock was finally fixed. But the thing I still think about is this. When the police showed us security footage later, the man stopped right outside my office doorway and stood there for almost a full minute before walking away.
I was 12 years old, in 8th grade, sitting in the cafeteria during second lunch. It was raining hard outside, and everyone was crowded inside, loud and restless. I was joking with my friends when 4 loud booms echoed through the room. At first, we thought it was thunder. Then teachers started yelling. That was the switch. Security guards rushed in, telling everyone to get down and move into the multi-purpose room. Lunch trays were dropped. Someone screamed. The doors were shut and locked behind us. The room was massive, with glass panels along one wall. Adults ran to cover them with curtains. We waited. About 10 minutes in, rumors started spreading. Someone said a man with a weapon was outside the school. Someone else said he had been watching kids through the fence earlier that week. The tension escalated when a teacher near the exit suddenly slammed the door shut harder and told us to stay away from the walls. An hour passed. No announcements, no updates, just silence, broken by whispering and crying. Finally, police escorted us out in small groups. We weren't allowed to look toward the street. Later that day, my neighbor told me the truth. A man had barricaded himself in his house across from the school and was threatening violence if police approached. He had been watching students during lunch breaks for weeks. The aftermath was strange. The school never sent a letter home, no assembly, no explanation. But the unsettling part came years later when I found out that same man had been arrested for a violent offense months after the lockdown in another town.